Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann. I'm going to be your instructor tonight.
My name's Tim Klinsky.
Good to have you on board. Are you a community volunteer or a student?
Community.
We always like to have community volunteers. Hi, Melissa. She muted her mic already.
Hi, Marianne. I muted ahead in case my dogs want to bark to say hello.
Well, they're welcome to. Tim and I were just exchanging information.
Good deal.
And I'll just taking care of a little family business before we started. I have a feeling it's too bright in here.
You look okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I just see a shadow right now, and let's see. There, that
That's a
looks
little better. Yeah. Yeah.
good. So here's keeping our fingers crossed that it'll go well.
Yep. That's what I've been telling everyone at United Way too. I said, hopefully we can keep everything going till April.
Yeah, that's no kidding.
But also my mantra is we control what we can control. So
That's right.
yep,
Life goes on, so
it does.
yeah. Tim, where do you work?
I'm retired. Work for the
Welcome.
state.
Which one? Which state?
Work for the Iowa.
Somewhere, technically, I worked for the state of Illinois under the Secretary of State, but we had the systems were autonomous, which was kind of funny, but that's how it went. So, but he had the purse strings. I think it's still that way. I've been retired for going on 14 years, so I haven't bothered to keep up. What did you do for Iowa?
I was an accountant for the Department of Corrections.
Oh, that is a good job, and I imagine very taxing. No pun
Yeah.
included, sorry. Oh, oh, quit it. I put my phone on. I should have just turned the stupid thing off. I put it on vibrate.
Oh, I know sometimes vibrate is almost as loud as having it on, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I shut my email. I logged out because I didn't want that pinging and getting in the way because I'm going to have a hard enough time.
Yeah.
This is my first real virtual training, so this is wonderful because then maybe it'll be better next week when I have the 6 of them.
There you go.
Yeah, wish I was as ready for them as I am for this. But how many are we expecting tonight?
Last night I expected about 20. We had 35 on. A couple of them came late, couple left early, but I'd anticipate, I don't know that we'll have 35 tonight. I'd anticipate 25 to 30.
That's fine. As long as the call, there's not too many. I was on a Google Meet with 97.
Oh my.
And it worked fairly well because, we all did what we were supposed to, at least most of the time.
Yep.
So that's what happened.
I had 43 site volunteers, including the coordinators and everyone. That's the exhaustion of my list of confirmed. So we had a pretty good percentage who jumped on.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Yep. And that doesn't include students. We only have one student in that group. They're doing their training when they get back. So, and we're recording these so they can refer to them for their training.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So I have all community volunteers. Except
Yes.
wonderful. Yes. That's not usually the case with the trainings that I have done in the past. They were some community volunteers, but mostly students. You must have really twisted some arms.
You know, we had good recruitment efforts. Our communications team did a good job putting the word out. We had it on in the newspapers and not WQAD, but the NBC affiliate. And then we did some Facebook ads too. And then just word of mouth with our community, reaching out to organizations and businesses. So, because I emailed past volunteers and we got some response there, but we have a lot of new volunteers this year. So,
oh, what a year for new volunteers. I'll have to tell them to not take this as the normal.
Yes, if you can make it through this year, you can make it through anything, right?
Exactly. At least that's what I think. I keep telling my volunteers, we don't lose too many. And this year we lost one that decided to go to Florida. Why they would want to go down there, but and then one's having surgery. So I really didn't lose anybody due to the conditions, current health conditions, but I do have a lot of them that, just want to do taxes in their own home, which these models will allow. So we'll see where we go.
Yep, that's right.
Maybe we'll have a really small group and it'll be great.
Yeah, this is how it was last night. And I thought, well, we'll see. And then all of a sudden, right at 5:30, 5:31, we get a lot of dial-ins.
Yeah, I've always been one. I want to come on at least 10 minutes early to make sure I can get in without any connection problems.
Yep.
Hey, Melissa, this is Tony. Can I ask a question before our meeting starts?
Sure.
Is this software too intuitive? In other words, if I didn't know somebody was eligible for the earned income credit, if I put in all the parameters, would it then calculate that?
So Mary Ann will cover that during the training.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that yes.
Okay. I have another
yes.
question. I know somebody that gets Social Security only. I believe they're over 70. They haven't filed a tax return the last year or two. They didn't get the PPP $1,200 because they've never filed a return. Should they file a return this year and can they get a credit for that?
Definitely. And that's one of the things we'll hit tonight.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There's a faster way, rather than file a return, is they can actually go on the IRS website and I should have brought down the URL, but then can request the stimulus checks.
Okay.
Okay, but I mean, there's no problem if you do the return. There's a trick in that, and of course, maybe with the economic payments, maybe that won't be an issue. But generally, you have to go in and put $1 in other income because the software does not like zero income.
Oh, sure. Sure. Okay.
So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, just say a quick good evening to everybody dialing in. We have about a minute before we start, so we'll wait a minute or two here and let the remainder of the group dial in. It looks like we already have about 23 people. We had 35 last night, so a very good turnout.
Hopefully that's your dog playing with his dog toy.
Yes. Yes, that is. There's nothing else weird going on here, just my dog.
Well, Ruth, you're in good company. My dog is snoring in my lap, so if you hear a snore,
Yeah, this particular dog is what they call a de-squeaker. So I'm sure within the hour, this toy will no longer be squeaking.
That's where the mute button's a great thing. It's just when they make noise, have to talk, that the problem occurs. Okay, we have just a couple more dialing in here. Okay, we will get started. It is 5:32, and I welcome you to session 2 of our 4-session VITA training. Thank you for everyone who's taking the time to go through this training. We hope you find it very helpful. Yesterday evening, we walked through some of the setup and the intake form, and we did not get to TaxSlayer, but never fear, we're going to cover that tonight. So as I send out the outlines day to day, just know that we are trying to plan accordingly. This is the first time we've done this training via Zoom, so please bear with us. We are trying to allocate the right time frame for everything, but we will get through all of the topics by the end of the training Thursday night. So just a quick note for tonight. Once again, we do ask that everyone mute yourselves during the presentation, and do use that chat box if you have any questions. Once again, we have a lot of content to cover, so I'll leave it up to Marianne, our presenter, when she wants to call for questions. Otherwise, do use the chat box. And especially if you're having computer difficulties, anything like that, you can use the chat box. I have my email open here too, and I'll try to help you as we go. Also, if you have not picked up your volunteer packets, we referred to them last night by their official names. We have publication 4012 and publication 6744. That's what comprises your volunteer packet. I will be at the office one last time for volunteer packet pickup Friday, 2 to 4 p.m. at the United Way office. We are not open usually because we're all working remotely during COVID. If for some reason you do not get to pick it up, it is available online, and I will send those links to you. I have sent them to a couple of people upon request. It is nice to have the hard copy if you can, because it is a long document. So with that, we are so lucky to have a great AARP team who partners with United Way to provide these services. And Marianne Stewart is the AARP Illinois side of the river coordinator, and she has agreed to walk us through TaxSlayer and filing the federal return tonight. So I want to thank you, Marianne, for taking the time to be on this call and to lead all of us through this training. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Melissa. I know Melissa's asked you to all turn off your audios. I'm going to ask you all to turn off your videos. That takes up bandwidth and it just makes it sometimes more difficult to maintain the your connections. Okay, bear with me. It's my first time truly presenting, and I'm going to do a share screen and pray that that is actually okay. And somebody's going to tell me if they don't, anytime I say I'm going to share and, oh, and you don't see it, that's why I didn't want to leave it in Word. Okay, I'm Marianne Stewart, and I am the ARP Tax Aid Illinois 1 District 31 Coordinator, which basically means for the Illinois sites that we're all using here with our coalition, that I'm the one that gets to dish out, or actually most of the time it's they're dishing out on me. I've been in the program now for, I don't know, it's 33 or 34 years. Obviously I must really like this. My background, I have a joint degree with a master's in business and one in library science. I spent my career in the library side of it, but I just can't think of a program that is more worthy of volunteering than this particular one. The people we help, you just get joy every time they come in. We're very, very fortunate that in the Quad Cities, United Way has been instrumental in bringing together a coalition of the VITA and the ARP sites on both sides of the river. This has been going on now for 13, well, I know it's been going on for the 13 years I've been the district coordinator. What it has done is it allows us to get more resources. We help each other. Your site leaders help us, we help them. We like to share our thoughts on how things should be done to reach the community better. So I have to give a great thank you for everything that United Way has done to support the IRS programs. And that's what VITA and Tax Aid are. They are programs sponsored by the Internal Revenue Service to provide income tax service basically to low income, medium income families and individuals. Our differences are VITA is really geared to an income level and low to medium, not even medium, low income families. And you have a cap of what you can do. And it's generally the limit on the earned income credit. And sorry, I never look at that because, like a gentleman asked earlier, the system does that for you. So I've quit worrying about what the cap is. The tax aid program, on the other hand, has what we call a scope document. If it's within scope, we can do it. Last night, John and Sarah mentioned things that were in scope, out of scope. Basically, it's just the rules that we live by. But in our case, that's all we live by. Frankly, if somebody walked in with $300,000 in income, we're supposed to do them. I don't think anybody that makes that kind of money would ever come to a place like ours, but if they did, if they met the scope, we would probably do them and then suggest very, very strongly that they quit being so cheap and go someplace else. My agenda for tonight, and as you can see, I'm asking that you use chat for questions. It's just easier that way. I am going to talk about new tax changes, which I always laugh because if you're a brand new volunteer, you have questions about the tax law, period. but I'm just going to go over a few of the new things because this year has, because of COVID, has some unusual changes. Then we're going to go into the practice lab. If you have a problem, if you have not logged in and gotten your login to the practice lab, if you can't do it, chat with Melissa for her to help you, or Sarah or John. You really need to be in the practice lab because part of this is I want you doing returns so you get a feel for the software and how you take information and put it into the system.
So Mary Ann, not to interrupt, but I am being told that they're not able to set up their account without their site identification number. Is there a way to go around that? Because we have not assigned sites yet for VITA.
They don't. They should never have to have a site ID.
Okay.
An SIDN.
Okay.
Okay.
Just wanted to verify. I was getting a little pushback on that, so just wanted to.
Just forget that that's there and go ahead and create. If there is a problem, I can give you one of mine, but you should not be required to have one for the practice lab.
Okay, we just had someone else chat and say that he was able to do it without. Okay, thank you.
Great. The next, before we actually get into doing returns, I want to talk about dependents. One of the biggest problems that we see, and I think you folks will see it even more than we do, is who is actually a dependent. And in this day and age where so many families have moved back in together, you have multiple children from multiple parents all living, you have brothers and sisters. So I really wanted to go through that just so you would feel you could go to different resources and get a handle, because frankly, I've been in the program all this time and I still have to stop and think when I get into some of these situations, because it's like, is this person really a dependent of the taxpayer or not? Once we do that, we'll actually go in and do returns. And there's 2 of them. I gave you the information. After the end of the session, I'm going to ask Melissa. I actually sent her the completed returns, and so that you can see the different, when you do it yourself, you can see how you worked out. And then if there's any final questions, if we have time, I'm really concerned about the time. So Melissa, if I start going on and on about something, just stop me, would you please?
Will do. Yes. And I did not send the completed returns. So if you're looking for those, I did not send them because we wanted you to work through your own first. So I will follow up with those completed returns to you at the end of the night.
Okay. So now I want maybe. There it goes. I really don't like the way I did this. I apologize, folks, but this information is all in the 1040 instructions. That's exactly where I pulled it out. I deleted some things because it's not really important, but some of these are going to be important and they are going to impact you. The economic impact payments, yes, you will have to enter those, what they got for the first payment and what they got for the second payment. The IRS is supposed to send a letter out by the end of January stating what every individual got. I'm hoping that I've asked 211 through Melissa and Craig if they would be sure to include that in their little list of things that they tell people to bring, because you need to know the exact amounts. Because if they didn't get those, they will be able to get them through the completed tax return. And the software actually works very well if you don't enter any amounts to giving the folks that credit as part of their refund. So what's the issue? Well, if you got them and you say you didn't, your return will probably be rejected by the IRS. If not, when the staff go to file them, it will come back with a letter and they will not get to double dip. But if it's a situation where somebody didn't get all of the money, maybe it was a new child that was born in 2020, this will allow them to get the money back in what is probably a better mechanism than trying to get the IRS to write individual checks. So this is going to be important. And it's also going to be a headache because a lot of people will not remember, number one, if they got the money, or two, how much they got. Just one of the headaches. It's a great way, though, for people to get the money that haven't already gotten it. Some of these other things, you know, being able to use your 2019 earned income figure. And the reason for that is 2020, you probably didn't make as much. So they're letting you do that so that you get the earned income that you would have been entitled to this year had life gone on as it normally does. Some things on educator expenses will actually, no, I don't know if I'm showing you one of those. They always have things for federal disaster areas. We're not in any of them this year, thankfully. They've changed some things around. The form's a little different again this year. And now they're putting estimated tax payments on line 20, bearing it in one of those schedules that I absolutely hate, but it is what's there. Makes it much easier for the taxpayer to see. Estimated payments is where someone sends something in quarterly because they're not having it taken out of wages or retirement or whatever, so that the government doesn't get nasty with them. The next new thing is going to be a big thing for you guys because this year, even if you don't itemize, you will be able to take up to a $300 deduction for charitable contributions. Now, I just thought of something, Steve. This is going to be a problem for Iowa state returns, I think, because the way that you input this is to put it into a Schedule A on cash donations, and then it transfers over to the form. Because in our state, that's not a problem, Illinois. In yours, because your itemized deductions is so much lower. So something that you might think about, Steve. I'm not sure how that will work. The other thing, standard deductions amount have increased. Nobody has to worry about this. The software does it automatically. If you're an old folk like I am and you're working, you weren't allowed to make any IRA contributions after you were 70 and a half, even though you were working. Well, that's gone. And then there's a group of things for basically people that are self-employed that will help them get credits to help ease through all of the destructiveness in their economic lives over the past year. Finally, for you guys won't do these, but I know some of your site coordinators do, amended returns can finally be sent in electronically. Yay, 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 yay. People can ask for all their communications to come in their language, not in English. And then there's some things on Schedule D, which in general don't affect most of the stuff that you guys are actually going to do. I am going to find the button for stop sharing. Where's the button?
I think if you just go to the top right corner of your screen, there should be.
I found it. Thank you.
Yep.
You okay. Now, does anybody have any questions about those? Most of that will come up again when we're doing the returns. Okay. So I now am going to, oh, Sugar Shacks. Well, we'll make it work. All right. This is the TaxSlayer calls it the springboard. This is actually where you will start from. Oh, did I share this? Nope. So
nope, not seeing it yet.
Oh yeah, it's just me. So sorry.
There we are, we got it.
Okay, now move that back down. Let's make this bigger. Okay, this is the springboard. It has the practice lab, online, and the blog. Practice lab is what you guys are going to do until you're at your sites. You can play in here, you can do anything you want to do. It's fine. Those of you that are just creating your logins this year, keep track of that login because you can continue to use it. In fact, you should continue to use the same one as long as you're volunteering in the program. It will require you at times, and usually the most inconvenient times, to create a new password, but never understood that problem with the practice lab. Pro Online is where you actually do taxes, and you will be given specific logins by your site coordinators to use. And then the blog is another, this is where TaxSlayer keeps people up to date. And for those of us, we're always looking at these different things, why something doesn't work. Since a lot of you are community volunteers, some of you might find some of this stuff interesting, but this is how TaxSlayer continues to keep us up to date. We really go here when the system goes haywire and goes down, because obviously we can't do any taxes. So let me, oh, Sugar Shacks. Okay. Back to the practice lab. The first thing that you have to know, in all caps, you have Train Pro Web. You have to enter that to even get to the login screen. Now, please don't tell anybody I did this, but for the practice lab, because you have to have a 15-character login, and frankly, this is all garbage, I've always saved my password here. Do not save your password in online when you're in the production database. So once you sign in, you come to this area. Section 1, Section 4, and Section 6, you might want to look at. These are all little video trainings. I call them, they're fine. I get really tired of hearing some of their voices, but you know, you can go back here and it can provide you with some information if you're having trouble, kind of like their own online tutorial. It might be easier if they actually had a manual that you could look at, and they do, but and you could save that to your desktop, I guess. We want to go to the practice area. Here we are in the practice area. Nah. Oh, good. So once you get here, this is the screen, and this screen is the same that you will see in the production database. They are identical. When they make one change in the practice lab, that's, you know, the software, it's being made in the production server. You have the ability, and first of all, the user, everybody in practice lab is an IRS user. When you're in production, you will have your own user ID there. You can change tax year. Most of you are never going to do a prior year return, but if I go to 2019, there are my returns from 2019. If I needed to do an amended return, I could go in and do it there. If somebody wanted to check. I don't know how much access you guys have because your program is run differently than ours. Over here on the left, you are always going to have menu box over here that will give you, depending upon where you've landed, it will tell you where you can go. Right here is where we start a new return. I'm not going to start a new return because this is the place, unless if people are confused about even getting here, I need to know now. Is everything okay, Melissa?
I think we're okay. I haven't seen anything in the chat, so I think everyone's following along. And I received replies from a lot of people that they already entered the practice lab. So it's possible that a few people have looked at this page.
Great. What I want to do before I actually start in the returns is I want to talk about dependents. That's probably not where I should have gone first, but in your 4012, of which I now understand a lot of you don't have.
I think about 75 to 80% of the people on this call should have it. So
well, they can just take notes if they don't.
Yep.
The 4012 is one of the best resources for a tax preparer in our programs. Believe it or not, it's very, very well done. It answers a lot of questions. I would suggest, since you're all in training mode, that when you have a question, even when you're doing a live return with a client, check your 4012. That's what the stuff is here for. So in section 3, the whole section is on dependents. And if you're looking at your 4012, it goes exactly down the chapters, sections go the exact way you would be doing a return. So the rules for claiming a person as a dependent, there's basically 2 ways. You're a qualifying child or you're a qualifying relative. If you don't meet the rules for either of those, now pardon me, but you might get confused, but that's all right. This is my 4012. Sorry, we have all of our own weird stuff. Okay, so I want to go to section 3. Here we are. So here are the overall rules. A qualifying child is basically a blood relative, whether, it's a grandchild, a great grandchild, it's a niece or a nephew. They have to be under 19 or a full-time student, and they must live with you more than half of the year. We are going to see in a couple of these problems why people are not qualifying children. They must not provide more than half of their own support, and they can't be filing a joint return. So that means if the child is married and they're filing a joint return with their spouse, forget it. They're on that return. You can only be on one return. And something that you will have to deal with is children that may be a qualifying child for more than one person. Those rules, they're very specific. Over the years, the IRS has gotten very particular about who can take the child and who can't. Because somebody was said, well, when there's earned income credit, you can only have 3 kids and I've got 5. Hey, Joanne, you take my other 2 kids. Well, so you've got the divorced couple, the kids live with the wife all the time, but the husband wants to take them, and there are rules that you follow, and there's actually a nice little workflow for you to go through that tells you who takes them. So if you're not a qualifying child, can you be a qualifying relative? And please understand that term child doesn't mean a kid. It just means a person who meets these qualifications. Sometimes people have a really hard time. My daughter came back to live with me. She's 60 years old. I'm supporting her. Man, that one won't work. Sorry. She'd be a qualifying relative. My niece comes to live with me. She's 13 years old. I'm providing all of her support. She lives in my house. I should have made her 17. She's my qualifying child for tax purposes. If you're not, you go to the test of being a qualified relative. The thing that you always have to understand, the qualifying relative may not be related to you. But they live with you, you provide all their support. The big point here is they do not make more than $4,300 a year. You never include Social Security benefits, but my son moved back, he makes no money. He is living here. I'm providing all of his support. He has 0 income. He can be my qualifying relative. If you always go back here, but I'm going to show you a way to trick it all in a minute. Here are the rules for qualifying child for more than one person. And then these are questions. It's just a flow chart, you know, yes or no, it tells you where to go. And at the end, it says, oh yeah, it's a qualifying child, or no, this is not a qualifying child. Then you go to the qualifying relative. And when you get to the end, by answering these questions, it will tell you yes or no. Very nice, usually very easy to follow. Like I said, the 4012 is an extremely helpful document to have. Now, because I'm lazy, there is a gentleman who many years ago, I would say at least 10 years ago, who is an ARC volunteer in Colorado. started working on making things easier for people to do, for his people to do. And more people found out about it, so he gave them access to the resource. This is now a listed resource in all our ARP documentation. They've changed it to the Colorado Research Toolbox. Jeff Bogart is the one that keeps this up, and I pray that he stays in the program as long as I am, because these tools are fantastic. The ones that I use all the time are the dependent qualification calculator. And if you go in here and answer, and we'll do that for, or maybe we'll do that for the Emerson problem. It will tell you at the end just exactly what they're eligible for. So anytime you've gone through the chart, you're not quite sure, here's a resource. Now, Sarah and John, don't kill me for letting people know about this, and they can tell you you can't use it. Personally, I think this is anything to help make our jobs easier and faster and accurate. I'm all for. I absolutely love all of the things that Bogart has done. The other one that I use all the time is the annuity calculator. You probably don't see very many of these. This is more an ARP area where people have got pensions, and there's all sorts of rules about how much of it is, if they have pre-tax, how much is taxable and how much of it isn't. So, oh, and I even see that he has done a coronavirus tax worksheet. Wonderful. So just one of the many, there are many resources out there. Don't be afraid to use them. As long as they were developed by a reliable source, you should always have access to the 4012, to the publication 17, which is the IRS publication. Those are the two that you should always have access to. And then if they let you use something like the resource toolbook, wonderful. As you can see, I have that as a bookmark on my browser, because I go in there all the time during the tax season. You notice I have the different county treasurer's office, which will come in handy when you're doing state taxes. Okay, so oh, you silly, that is not where you want to be. Where did I put those? Sorry.
That's no problem. Your desktop looks a lot cleaner than mine.
Oh, well, I am just wondering, I thought I had all of these things lined up on my desktop, so I'd have them. Well, fudge buckets. Okay, everybody, if open, oh, let's not even go there. Okay, let's open the, look at the Nelson problem that I gave you on dependency.
I think Nelson was in your browser that you were just in.
Really?
I think so.
Well, there's that. I got to move this thing. It's in my way.
Oh, mind. I was wrong. It was Emerson I was looking at. Let me see. I can always share too if I can figure this out.
No, I'll go open it up. Don't look at my absolutely. Now you're seeing all of my Okay. There's Nelson. Okay. Way too many things open. All right. So last night, Sarah gave you a really good introduction and training on intake interview. As much as I hate to admit it, this document gives you a lot of information that you need. This is, to me, a relatively new document. I don't know, maybe it's been around maybe 18 years. And it's taken me a while to get used to having it, but it gives you what you need to know. So they're filling this out. They're giving you the spelling of their name. They're giving you their telephone number. Down here, they're giving you their dependents. Now, sometimes people, because it says everyone who lived with you last year, other than your spouse, and I have grandmothers that come in and they write down like 5 names and where can I write the rest of them? And I said, so then you're going to ask questions. You know, this is the interview part. You're asking them questions. So Mr. Nelson has said he has a son. He lived with him all the time. He's now 21, but he is totally and permanently disabled. That makes a difference. And then he has a nephew who is living with him. And all of these questions over here, I'm sure Sarah told them that you have to answer them. You have to ask. This is where you're asking for information. So now down here, when we were doing that interview with Mr. Nelson, he told us that his wife left him and has not lived with him. And his son is permanently disabled, and he supports his nephew. And he's giving you all the information that he needs, that you need to have to provide this. So if we looked back onto here, we would find, come on, there's the worksheet. Rules for qualifying child of more than one person. And that's who Anthony is. But it comes down to who has the highest adjusted gross income. Because James Nelson meets all the requirements. Anthony's lived with him for 12 months. He provides more than half of his support. When it goes back, if her adjusted gross income had been higher than James, he could not claim the child. And that's where you have the rules that have been set up over the years. Oh, just to mention, when you get into the practice lab, you always have to enter these 2 zeros. Wait a minute. I'll talk about that when we're actually in there. Let's not worry about that. So, okay, if you remember the rules, remember the rules, it said to be a dependent, let's make you dizzy, had to be a qualifying child, all right? Anthony is definitely a descendant of his sister. But the child, he's 21, he's not under 19. He's not a full-time student, but he is permanently and totally disabled. No matter how old, that child will always be a dependent. And when we go into the software, I will show you how you identify that so that the software allows him to be claimed as dependent. So now we're going to look at Anthony, and Anthony is the nephew. He's 15. He's lived with you all the time. He's a full-time student because he's still in high school. So that's where we had to come back to the rules for the qualifying child. And as such, Anthony also qualifies as a qualifying child for James's return. This makes a very big difference when you're doing the tax return, because remember, we have the child tax credit and for anyone under 17, that comes into play. Are there any questions? I suppose one of the things we should state is that, whoops. One of the things about Nelson, and this goes back to filing, is he's still married. By the rules, if you're married, you must file married filing jointly or married filing separately. However, as with all good things, there is another condition. I hope this isn't making you guys dizzy. There is another condition that says that if you have dependents that are your blood relatives and meet the qualifying child, then you can be head of household. Whoa, I should have gone to the index. Sorry, guys. Filing status. This is in section B on B8. And this lets you go right down and determine, so were you married? Yes. Did you or your spouse live apart? Yes. Do any of the following apply? You had a child. It was your child, your stepchild, your grandchild. It has to be your child. Then you can be head of household. Head of household is a better filing status. Notice that it is for your child. So we get away from the qualifying child, and it has to be your blood relative. I need to open. Yeah. questions on Nelson? Okay, Gail. Gail Yale, what a name. Somebody was having fun. Okay, here we have a married couple and they have a son and a daughter, and they also have a family member living with them. In each case, we have no question about Melissa or Douglas. They're their kids. They meet all the requirements. You aren't going to go back to that chart unless there are some differences. So the brother is one that I would have been going back on. He is totally disabled, and he only gets Social Security, which is not considered. So if you go over the requirements, he is a relative, he's a brother, he's permanently disabled, and he has lived with them and they provide all of his support. So if you were doing their tax return, you would be able to include all three of these as dependents. And that permanently and totally disabled, I will show you how you indicate software, because if the software saw this birthday, they would automatically disallow him as a dependent. Even if you put them in, they would disallow it. This isn't really as easy as I thought it was going to be. Okay. I'm going to go back to the practice lab. And I hope you're all there. I want you all to select. And this is what you will see every time you ask for to enter a new return. What you have been given are obviously are fake numbers. So for Emerson, you will put in I lost my book, too many books.
And just so everyone knows, we're almost at the halfway point. So we've covered a lot of ground just in the first half. So we're halfway there.
Okay, so Joanne's number is 204. In this initial input, in the practice lab only, you have to tab the final four numbers are at your discretion. I use the last four numbers of an EFIN, which is something related to one of my sites. You can pick whatever four numbers you want. But I would suggest you use one set of four numbers and you use that throughout the whole process, because that's goes now. Continue the session. Notice if I do something wrong, it tells you right away. So the good thing is right at the very first, you have to enter the Social Security number correctly twice.
I have a quick question for you, Marianne. Is this separate from the booklet from the 6744? Is this a unique?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
This is something that ARP develops every year for all of the trainers in tax aid. And it's actually, I don't even remember, it's set up between core exercises, comprehensive, intensive, to give us an opportunity to practice returns and get back in the swing of things before we hit the ground running. So the 6744 is just your test booklet. And once you get to the sections where you have to do returns, and I think that those are questions 6, 7, and 8, then you will be using the practice lab to do those returns in. I'm hoping this.
So in
Yeah.
other words, Marianne's going above and beyond to give us extra practice.
Oh, I'm just so mean. But the thing about this practice is you're going to see the right answers.
Yes.
In the test, you don't see the right answers until you submit the test, and then it's too late to make a change. What I wanted to show you is I've already done this return. So it's telling me that I've already done it, and I need to either put in a different Social Security number or I need to go to the client search. Nice little thing. You get interrupted, you come back, you pick up the wrong paper, you start on something. The system is pretty good about keeping you on track when you're doing something that you shouldn't have done. So, oh, shoot, I should, okay. Once you've done, started doing returns, you will always have this client list. My assumption is that in your groups, you will only see the returns that you have done. Some of my counselors only want to see what they've done. I see everybody. In the practice lab, I only see my own, because if I was seeing everybody's, that would be the entire nation. The entire nation is using this same practice lab. If you look here, these all say in progress, and all of a sudden this one says review. That means something specific. And when we get to the very end, I will show you that. And I am assuming that this is where you will be leaving most of your returns. John or Sarah, is that not the case? They've gone to sleep on me. Okay. They can tell you.
That's the case. Most of them should be left in the review stage.
Okay. Thanks, John.
And Sarah has another meeting from 6 to 7.
That's
going
right.
to be at the beginning and the end.
I forgot about that. Okay. So here is, whenever you've already started to return, it comes into the summary page. But I'm going to go back and start at the beginning. And I want you to start entering things. If people start falling behind, let us know, and then maybe I'll tell you to just watch what I'm doing and then give you a little bit of time to go back and do it. The first thing that comes up is it asks you, what is the filing status? That's the very first thing. If you change the filing status after you've gone past this stage, you will lose anything that you have in the state return, and you will have to recreate the state return. It's not as bad as it sounds because stuff still flows. The nice thing about using any kind of a online tax software is that what you put in the federal, if it's appropriate, it flows to the state. So in the case of Illinois, we don't have to do very many things and our state return is done. Iowa, that's not the case. So for the Joanne Emerson problem, I have selected qualifying widow with dependent children. Don't know how many times you'll see this, but you more than us, I think. So the rules on that in the filing status, oh gosh, if I go back over here. So were you married? No. Joanne's husband died in 2018. Did your spouse die during the year? No. What else applies? Did he die in 18 or 19 and you didn't remarry? You answer all these. Do both of these apply? Did you provide more than half the cost? Do you have a qualifying person? You say yes. Whoops, we go up here, sorry. If these all answer and you say yes, and then you're qualifying widower. What that does is it gives the person an extra 2 years after their spouse dies, if they have children, to be in that more advantageous filing status. Because qualifying widow is the same as married filing jointly. So your standard deduction is more than single or head of household. We don't see a lot of these. It's always sad when we do, but this is the decision tree. And so I say, come back and do this. I knew that that was the case, but that's because, you know, I've had a couple of these situations and you're always looking, at least we're always looking, what's the best filing status? So married filing jointly, if you're married, is the best filing status. If you have children and you're single and they meet the qualifications, head of household, much better than single. So you need to practice doing that. Whoops, I put the wrong year in. And notice that the software, if I tried to put in, I can't put in 2017, I can only put in 18 or 19. And now you get to the personal information. So where do you get all this personal information? You get it from the intake sheet and their Social Security cards. I don't want to step on anybody's toes about, you know, we require photo ID so we can prove that they're, and you do too, that what they put on the intake sheet is correct. And for Social Security, we require Social Security cards. In our environment, if they have a Social Security statement because they're on Social Security, we take that in place of their Social Security card. I'm not going to say what we also do. I don't want John and Sarah to get angry with me. But we're very careful. I mean, what we do is we will take last year's return. If they prove who they are, we'll take last year's return. But in your case, I think you're almost always going to want to see Social Security cards because I can remember people coming in with a beat up list of kids' names and social security numbers. And they wanted us to put them on their tax return. Well, if you don't have that kid's social security card, who are you to them? If you're their legal guardian, you should have that and be able to provide. I think more and more taxpayers are realizing that they have to prove that we're not going to take their word for it. We want to see theirs. We want to see the kids', especially the children's. And that sometimes you guys are going to have a little problem. We'll have to call somebody over, I imagine, because it's the father, the kid's living with the father, and the mother isn't giving up the social security cards.
Mary Ann, can I interrupt you for just a second?
Please, Courtney.
So in my history, I was the director of revenue in the state of Iowa, and I spent a fair amount of time dealing with tax refund fraud. Fun little anecdote. The lore is that, and my husband and my daughter are making fun of me over my shoulder. The lore is that when the IRS started requiring, or when Congress told them to start requiring social security numbers for children, about 50 million children in this country just disappeared. So I'm glad you laughed at that, Mary Ann. Thank you. That makes me feel good. So, you know, I think you were spot on. And I'll reiterate what I said last night about, you know, it's super important for us to confirm that ID, because VITA sites do very well in terms of having clean returns that aren't fraudulent returns. So the reason that's the case is because we do require people to prove who they are and prove that they are entitled to take their dependents. And I'll get off my soapbox now.
Nope, I totally, I can say personally, I have 2 stepchildren and they lived with us. And I know that their mother and her husband were claiming them, even though we were required to. And boy, when that law came in, I was so happy. But yeah, because there was no way to double check. So they were definitely the same kids, but they were on 2 returns. Yep. So anyhow, very, very, very important. So you enter, the social security number for the primary is already there. Remember, you put it in when you started the return. Now you put in the birthday. These are these drop-down boxes. One thing in TaxSlayer, if they were born, it's not 05. It's not 05, it's 5. And if you learn, you can bounce over, but if you've already had this open and you're here, you've got to hit it twice. And once you get the hang of it, but double check. I can't tell you, I was doing a return and I was to the end and I couldn't understand why this taxpayer wasn't getting the extra money for the standard deduction. And I went back and instead of 1936, I think I had something like 1996. I was like, I hate these pull down boxes, but it's what we have. So just remember to be very careful. If you like them, great. It works well. It doesn't work for an old timer that's used to just keying in numbers, and you know I'm so used to doing. But in TaxSlayer, there's 1 digit. You don't put that initial 0. Typing in the occupation. I wish I knew what they use that for. But here are some other information. If the taxpayer is blind, this needs to be checked because they get an extra, they get additional money on the standard deduction. is the taxpayer deceased? When you do that, you will actually be asked to put in the date of death. And the return will show that the taxpayer is deceased. It doesn't make the return any different because you're still doing it. If they were married filing jointly, they're still married filing jointly. Sarah told you about the $3. I agree with Sarah. I think one time in the last how many years somebody wanted that. It's up to the taxpayer. So I'm sure if it's somebody that served in a combat zone, they're going to let you know. We don't do non-resident aliens. You don't have to worry about that. Here is where, if they want to use last year's earned income, that you click. This is brand new this year. It wasn't there before. A natural disaster, we don't have any. Virtual currency. I doubt we're going to deal with any of those, and it's probably, I think it's out of scope for us, so it's probably out of scope for you. And here again, that new one, if they want it in another language. And if you click this, then it's going to, what language? And you have the selections. Okay. Now you come down and you add the address. Make sure if there is an apartment that you put it here. You know, some of these apartment complexes have 100 apartments and they'll never get their mail otherwise. Once you put in the zip code, it will fill in the city and town. You need to have some sort of a daytime phone number. In this environment, especially, make sure that you say, is this a number that you can be reached at? I had 2 clients last year. Their phone numbers no longer worked for whatever reason. I sent them letters. They were returned to me. We had a half-completed file and we couldn't get in touch with them. So double check that phone number, because if there is a problem, your ERO, the person that sent your returns, is going to have to call them to ask them questions. So this phone number is coming right off of the intake sheet, as is the address. Please double check this. None of this is going to be checked until the client, till your quality reviewer checks it, and then the client checks it. And that's, oh, I wish I could get rid of this thing. So this part is easy to do, but needs to be correct. Now, if they have a dependent, it's going to ask you, do you have a dependent? So you said yes, and now I'm creating the dependent. And here again, if you notice, I do everything in all caps. I don't know what your rules are, but we changed that quite a while ago to conform with the post office directives. When you are entering someone, so I'm entering Teresa, whatever the last name was of the primary taxpayer, that's the name that's going to fill in here. If your dependent has a different name, like a lot of them do, you're going to have to correct that. One of the things that's done when the return is submitted is that there is a, and true with the taxpayer, they do a comparison in their Social Security database. And if those things don't match, it's kicked out. So make certain, these are very important parts. I know you're going to have a quality reviewer, but it's better to do it correctly the first time. Again, entering the birth date. The Social Security number is a very scary part here. There is not a double check. you need to double check your social security numbers. It's the worst thing in the world to have to call somebody and say, can you give me Teresa's social security number? In this day and age, it's very difficult because people they don't know who I am unless they remember me. How many people are going to remember you? And in your case, the person calling didn't even do the tax return. So please, please, please double check those. You have to answer yes as a citizen. What's the relationship? There's this nice pull down box. How long have they lived there? All of these things TaxSlayer will treat them if they're not, if I say 3 months, she's not going to come up as a dependent. Okay. You don't have to usually answer any of these questions unless the child was over 18. And if they were a full-time student, you click here, and that's going to allow you to do the American Opportunity, the education credit. If the person is disabled, this is checked when, in the case of divorced people, one person gets the child this year, but the other parent can still get certain benefits. So you would check that in that case. So my husband gets to claim the kids this year, but the kids live with me, so I can get additional credit. I always laugh at these because I wouldn't even be entering somebody if they were making over $4,200 of income. But these are things that you would have to enter. What you basically are going to do are these top two. Once you do that, it will let you enter another child here. And notice here are all the questions. Once you come into a form, notice if I continue, it won't let me go anywhere. I have to cancel. The other very, very important thing, if I'm at this page and I haven't done a continue, that is the save key. So if I have half this entered and I walk away for whatever reason and the system logs me out, there's a power glitch, I'm not going anywhere. This is all gone. So in this case, again, we've added all of this. I got to talk faster. Shut up. Here's the case. He's over 18 and he's a full-time student. I should have started this differently. I'm going to see the save and exit. You can leave this taxpayer anytime. You can do it here or you can do it down here. But always save and exit. Oh, you played around too long. Okay. Notice how this came up. just like any of the software packages, you can always use those. Oh, heck, I'll just use my address. I'm going to say this is where it came up. I'm going to say no dependents. IRS identity protection PIN. Identity theft with tax returns. If I say yes, it's so nice. You don't have to go looking for it. Before, it was buried under. If you look over here, there's all in the federal section. Oh, crap, I can't go there yet. So it will give you, and they have to give it to you. They will get a letter every year that gives them the number. It changes. It is not the same year to year. When I continue again, next new thing, did you receive? I said, yes. It's asking you what was shown on the notice 1444. That's the letter we're all supposed to get by the end of January. So if I put 1,200 in and I put 600 in, these amounts will affect the return. I'm not going to complete this return, so it doesn't really matter. We'll change the one and the other one. Now you're seeing the wonderful screen. This is where it bounces you to the next level. And the first thing we have is income. All right, you have wages, W-2s. Very straightforward. You put in your EIN number, off of your W-2, you enter this stuff exactly. When I'm doing wages, exactly. On Joanne's, if you look at her W-2 from Jefferson Memorial, you will see her wages were 32, but her Social Security wages were 34. She's contributed to a 401k or 503b or one of some sort of a retirement account. And now you see my little identity pin down there that is actually hidden in the miscellaneous forms. And it's like a, you know, it's so much nicer. And why did they do that? I'm sure they did it because there were so many new identity theft issues. You guys are teaching me a lot of things just by doing this, and I'm very angry with myself. I didn't think some of this through a little bit farther. So I am back at the income page. So we're going to look at her W-2, and you're going to notice you type everything in. One of the nice things is that within your site, if that EIN number has been used and you type it in, all of the rest of the information will flow in. So you don't have to retype everything. Saves you lots and lots and lots of time. Wages, the 32,000, always double check. You know, I try to look as I'm typing to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. But Social Security wages, when I see that there's a difference, what TaxSlayer does is it automatically takes the wage amount and it sticks it in there, and you've got to manually change it. The good thing is that now it will automatically recalculate the Social Security tax withheld, which should then match to the W-2. That didn't happen the first couple of years we used TaxSlayer. But you put this in exactly as you see it. When you get to box 12, this is a lot of information that I don't even remember how many they allow you to put in, but they are listed in it. Actually, the employer lists those in priority. So the first one says this is a 401k contribution. DD is the insurance, how much they paid for health insurance coverage. The employer has. And I believe, I can't remember what C is. I was going to look it up. That's actually on the back of the W-2 if any of you still have W-2s, or you can find it in the IRS website. But you enter those. Notice the retirement plan is clicked. If they have anything in box 14, you enter it. Most of the time, it will be a retirement income, and you will either, it will either carry to the form for the retirement credit or it won't. Most of the time when you're seeing that, it's not going to carry because it's already tax sheltered. Each year this list grows, and of course there's nothing for Iowa and Illinois. But you can keep using that code up, and there's another one called Other, not listed here. Just put those codes in. They're there, and we need to add them in. I am not going to get into Medicare waiver because I think if you have one of those, your site coordinators are going to do them. Then you get down, you enter your state. There will be a unique state ID. Well, a lot of times in Illinois, if it's newer, it's the same as the federal ID if it's a newer company. If it's an older company, they have a much shorter EIN, state EIN. Again, you put your wages, you're just copying the W-2. You're not thinking, you're just copying, putting in online what's in the paper. If you have local taxes, the wages go here, the tax paid goes here, and the name goes there. Be thankful that you don't live in Ohio that has all sorts of local taxes. St. Louis does. So if you have to add more than one state, you add it right here. You click and the other state information will come up. And then you just fill it in. You may find that a lot with people moving back and forth, and that I think is going to cause some issues. But it always happens a little. We don't know how it's going to be this year. This has been an unusual year. So interest, she had interest from the Beacon Bank and Trust. And again, you are just going to enter what you see. Oh, this is so nice. I just realized they did that. Last year, they had all the other information, EIN number, address, blah, blah, blah. They've gotten rid of it because we really don't need it. But you have to enter whatever is on the 1099 INT. One of the things though, so they have $45 in interest. If you go down box 8, they had $309 of tax exempt interest. That's not taxable to the federal government, but it is taxable to both Iowa and Illinois. So if you further go down, you will see taxable state interest. And this is where you have to enter it so that that money gets transferred over to the state return, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't do that, your taxpayer in 6 months to 18 months is going to get a letter and say they owe tax on that when the states are doing all of their reconciliations. And it's a very easy form. You put what state and you put the amount, and that's carrying over to your state return. Again, this is really simple because all you are doing is you are just copying what is on the individual form. Here is the area that you would be putting those in. If you notice, it says print. That would actually print a Schedule A. There are sometimes that's nice, but I'm not even sure that it hasn't been working in practice labs, so I'm not going to bother with it. Here's the 1099s, and notice 1099R, RRB 1099, RRB 1099R, SSA. These are all the retirement forms that you're going to find. RRB, Railroad Retirement. Okay, I need to add a 1099. I have added this, and I'm going to save and enter another. Yeah, I know. Go on. This is what the blank form looks like. The recipients, you never re-put that in. I will tell you one thing though, if you find that you have made an address error on the main information and you fix it, it doesn't get fixed in any of these forms. So be careful. Again, you put in the ID number, and I'm going to do this one again because I want you to see this, and then I'll throw it away. So when I tab, this is what I mean by if it's already in the system and all the information comes in and I don't have to do anything at all. I know why I'm not going to like this. I don't get any verbal feedback. So anyway, this is how you, oh, that's right. This is how you enter your 1099. And if you look here, you generally are not going to have to worry because whatever the gross distribution was in box 2, the taxable amount is going to be there and it's going to be the same amount. In this example, it isn't there. And that's because for years, people paid in into their retirement accounts and they were taxed on them already. So the IRS does not want to tax them on money they've already paid tax on once. So in the system, there is a way to come up with the taxable amount. And you would do that by clicking here. And you would actually have a whole form that you fill out. And I'm sorry I gave you this problem again, but there are questions you have to answer. This 37,360 came right off of the 1099. In the interview, you were told that she started taking it at 1/1/2019. You have to know the age of the recipient. Normally, if it's a joint survivor, you would be adding these numbers together, but this person's husband died before he ever collected anything. So it's only her age. And again, this is something you can do on Bogart. I doubt you will see many of these because for quite a few years now, companies are being required to do all this calculation and put the taxable amount in the 1099. And so then you would have just had here, if I would enter the amount of 19,250, when you enter that, you get that amount automatically. And I would just put the 18,005, I think that's what it was. And you would just copy it. I thought this was going to be a real nice, easy problem. Sorry. I'm used to these. And again, the only things you have to worry about are putting down exactly what is on that form. You will have a lot of state input if you're doing Iowa people on your retirement form, because retirement is taxed in Iowa. So again, this is just like filling out a W-2. Don't worry about it. The one big thing I want to talk, distribution codes. For Illinois, it makes a difference if this is 4 or 4D. A 4 is not taxed, a 4D is taxed. And I'll get into that tomorrow night when we talk about Illinois taxes. Okay. Oops, let's go to income. Okay, in this, the other thing, we had a capital gains loss. If they've been coming to us for years, this rolls over. And I forgot to tell you about the one really wonderful thing. When you enter somebody's social security number, if they have been to one of our sites and agreed to carry over, all that personal information carries over and you only have to make changes. Okay? In this case, we had a capital gain loss, so we just go into the appropriate area. And, you know, you can play with looking at these things, but it's very clear. It tells you what to do. You don't have to think about it. Okay, so deductions, I'm hoping I'm going to get done on time. Deductions means more than standard and itemized. This is where adjustments are. If you remember the old tax form, the bottom of the page had about 10, 12 lines for different adjustments. These are all the different types of adjustments that you can take. So if you have anything that runs into this area, health savings account, educator expense, alimony paid, all of these, this is where you enter them. You don't have to worry that it will automatically come up with the standard deduction. However, in the case of the new charitable, you will have to input as a gift to charity. She gave $3,000. Doesn't matter if you look at the return when the completed one, it will only take $300. And you notice it says that. So just enter that and it automatically does the calculations for you. If you are doing an itemized, I don't know who generally does those, but this is where you would do that. If you are giving someone a credit, and in this case, we had an education credit, this is where you would also put in daycare. Foreign tax credit automatically carries over for anything we do. Here's where you would go in and do your education credit. I'm not going to go show you that because I'm running out of time and I want to get through the rest of the return. So just remember deductions. It's where everything is that's a minus number. And you just have to look. All these adjustments, if you look at the intake interview sheet, there's a whole section and it tells you, you know, did you have educator expenses? Let me see if I can read some of them really quickly. See, they're in section 4. Section 3 is income, section 4. So that section is going to go to the adjustments part. You'll just learn where they are. Sometimes you just look for a while. Why did I hit other taxes? Okay. Most of these, the only one here that you're really ever going to run into, I think most of the time, is first-time homebuyer credit. And this is just where you enter it and you'll get a couple more. You always answer no to this because if they answer yes, I don't think they should be here. And then you will enter the amounts that are appropriate for that taxpayer. Notice down here, I didn't want to bug in last night to Sarah, but you can click here and there is a lookup tool to see how much someone's paid. I don't know. I have one taxpayer that knows exactly. And like Sarah said, others have no clue, but you've got last year's taxes and it should have the information that you need. Okay. Payments and estimates. This is where you put in federal estimated payments, excuse me. Very simple. Just fill in what they already paid. The tricky thing is state estimated payments are also entered here. So if they paid it during the tax year, it goes in the federal form. If they want vouchers for the next year, federal goes in federal and state goes in state. Okay. Miscellaneous forms. So few of you will ever need this because the one we used to do was right here, and we no longer have it. Once you've finished all that, you're going to come up to the health questionnaire, and it's very simple. Did you purchase it via healthcare.gov or state marketplace? If you answer yes, you are going to have a 1095 and you fill in things appropriately. I continued here with that. It would say, are these the members of your household? I've never had a case where that wasn't agreeable, and you start answering these questions. This is almost always a no. The system tells you if you're below the poverty level, because if you're below the poverty level, you should be getting Medicaid. And then it asks you, does the form include January through December with no changes in the monthly amount? If you say yes, it just asks you to enter the 3 totals at the bottom. If you say no, you have to enter and you have to repeat, type in every single one. So, but that's as simple as it is for, let's just go back to health insurance. If you say no, you're done with the federal tax return. And now you can add your state return, which we'll be doing tomorrow night. And I actually haven't done those, so we can show the different things. The next part, summary print. Unfortunately, this is not necessarily correct. Oh, it looks so much nicer. They've got it lined up finally. But this, you get to see the actual tax return. If you notice down here, in this case, you have to click these little buttons to keep going. If you want to be absolutely certain, or if you need to see like a Schedule D. By hitting that continue, it's going to do yes, 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 yes. I don't want to add it. It's telling me they found an error. If you remember, oh, no, this is an error I made. There is an incomplete form. It's not letting me go any farther. So I tell it to visit. Oh, I need to delete this. So this is to go in and enter. This is to delete. Okay, oh, I didn't show you all the, all right. Here's Social Security. You just fill in the information off of their worksheet. Notice the box 2 is federal tax withheld. And you don't have one with this one because she's not getting Social Security. So after summary print, oh, this is a new screen from 2 days ago. Here's the view print. Continue prior year comparison. I really don't use, some of my counselors like to show that to clients who are complaining why they didn't get as much of a EIC as they did last year. It's kind of a nice tool. Now we go to the e-file. An e-file is important because this is completing. Again, it's showing me that there was a problem because I didn't complete a state return, but I put Illinois on a W-2. But this is what the e-file section looks like. There are a variety of selections, and this is directed by what the taxpayer wants. This taxpayer wants direct deposit. Then you will need to input the taxpayer's account information. This is one of the most critical areas. When you put in the bank name, you don't type the refund amount, you click pull refund. And that puts in the refund. I must have changed something. That puts the refund in from the federal return. You type the routing number, you type it again. It does not allow you to copy and paste. This must be typed in correctly twice. And when you're typing, these get all X'd out so you can't see them. Here's the account number. You need to be looking at a check. Please, 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 you double check this. Make sure that everything is correct. If it goes into the wrong person's account, they may never get that money back. And that's the last thing we want to have happen. If you want to break it up, you can. I highly discourage that happening, but we have to allow it. The next part is allowing, and this is the back page of your intake interview. Do you allow global carry forward? I encourage every taxpayer to say yes. You click that. Primary PIN, I always use the taxpayer's zip code. I don't know what your procedure are, and then you will be putting in the date, and the date will be the date you actually did this. When you go next, Oh boy, they really updated. This wasn't here yesterday. Here are all the questions that you have to answer. This one, ridiculous, no spouse. We have a lot of people that get, this is going to be interesting because the taxpayer is not going to be physically present while my group does the return, but we're going to answer yes anyway. Once you've done that and everything is complete, sorry, this is something that happens to mine. You should never see it. It sticks my login in there. And now you will come to the submission page. You guys will, you don't print. At this point, you're going to go down and you are probably going to click ready for review. And you're done. Because my understanding is then your quality reviewers are the ones that come in, they double check everything, and then they print. No, we don't print until we have a quality review either. So if you are done, you will save and you'll exit your return. And then you'll go on, however you have someone come and do the quality review. I don't know your procedures. In our case, we have another counselor. We do peer counseling, or we used to, and they would come over and check it. We would print and then go over it with the taxpayer. What have I forgotten?
I think we're all caught up on chat questions. So we have about 9 minutes left. And before we go any further, I just want to say thank you to Marianne. So much great content covered in a short time. So good work.
I'm sorry I moved back and forth. I hadn't thought the virtual model through well enough, and I appreciate all of you being my guinea pigs. I have 6 sessions next week, so thank you for letting me do this. If you have any questions, Sarah knows how to get a hold of me. John knows how to get a hold of me. Obviously, Melissa does. I'm thankful to being able to work with all of your local coordinators. Your VITA people are great. And Perlene,
Yes.
we love going back and forth on Saturdays with MLK. So
Yeah, that's great.
And just to let you all know, I did just email you the completed returns. So when you get off this Zoom, if you're ambitious tonight, you can look at them. Otherwise, you know, you might want to look tomorrow with fresh eyes, but those will be in your inbox.
Amen. And I encourage you to do those so that you're in there doing something before you go do your test. I should tell you, when you're doing Link and Learn, the few questions, you just do them in your book and then you answer them. But the last 3, you have to do an actual return. And by practicing with these 2 fake returns, it'll give you some familiarity with the software as you're going along. Were there any comments, people that didn't get the flow of the software?
I'd just say that it's, you know, we did have some questions about, well, where can I see the actual form? And we used to have, that's the debate with your site coordinators. We used to have an old software that worked a lot differently than this. But this one, we're taking we're copying what we see from one source to another. And then what happens is TaxSlayer as a whole is going to populate that tax return for us. we do want to have that tax expertise that we can kind of go through it and see if there's anything that's a little weird or looks funny or that sort of thing. But generally speaking, we're doing this form to form versus filling out the schedules.
Whoops, I muted myself. I'm sorry. I wanted to show one thing in that stupid tax layer. Share.
Clearly, we all love this program.
Yeah, you know, I'm really getting used to it, and they have been very receptive. Oh, that's a stupid return. I don't want to be in that one. That was the bogus one I just created on the fly. Bogus. Let's go back to Emerson. One of the things, if you want to see the form, what I showed you in federal, from here you can kind of look at it. This is much better than it was last week. Or you can view the form if you're looking at the whole thing. The other nice thing is that there are several sections where you can actually print it. So I'm hoping this works. It didn't a couple weeks ago. So here's the form. You can actually see what it looks like. In TaxSlayer, like Sarah said, you cannot enter anything. But if I know something should be on the IRA line, I can click here and it will take me to the place in the software I need to go. So if you're familiar with the form, or if you know a form number, so I want to go to a W-2, I can type that in the form finder and I can go there. Here's the W-2G for unemployment. And that's gambling winnings. 1099G is unemployment, sorry. So here is that information. So you've got a couple of different ways. Although I tend to put everything together and put all the income and then do the deductions again. It's what you're comfortable with. In my group, I always tell them, you do what you want to do unless it screws up the process, and then I'm going to tell you how I want you to do it. So, there are a couple of other ways that you can actually get into different forms to input them if you're not sure exactly where they go. There's also a couple of charts out there that show. I know the ARP group has one. Well, it's been great talking to you guys tonight. I will, unfortunately for you, I will see you all tomorrow for a little bit in the first part of the section.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing from you again tomorrow. And Steve Imming is going to cover the Iowa taxes, and Marianne Stewart will cover the Illinois taxes. So we're halfway done with training. So thank you all for sticking in there. Thanks again to Marianne and Sarah and and John and our site coordinators and Courtney, who are offering input here and there. Like I said, this is the first time we've done this via Zoom, so we really appreciate you bearing with us and learning along with us how to do this virtually instead of in person.
I know. And I'll see you tomorrow at 11.
Yes, Perlene and I are doing a site walkthrough tomorrow at 11, so I will see you then. The rest of you, if I don't talk to you before then, we'll see you tomorrow night at 5:30, same place.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Marianne. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Okay.